Yeah, so our talk is the most interesting title of any ever, apparently. Sorry, Norman.
Yeah, but you didn't say title, you didn't say content. It was a clever
You can judge
word.
that at the end, yeah. So yeah, when I was born in 1991, 94% of people didn't have any form of mobile phone. Pretty much 100% of movies were all on VHS tape. The World Wide Web wasn't actually publicly available. It was released on 6th of August 1991 and I was born on the 6th of April. And yet 27 years later, imagine getting by with no internet. Imagine running a business with no mobile phone. Imagine buying a car and it having a cassette player in it. This is just not going to happen nowadays.
So, constant revolutionising of production, uninterrupted disturbance of all social conditions, everlasting uncertainty. All old established national industries have been destroyed or are daily being destroyed. They're dislodged by new industries whose products are consumed not only at home but in every corner of the globe. In place of old wants, satisfied by the production of the country, we find new wants. So that pretty much describes today, I would say, wouldn't you? That was written in 1848 by Marx and Engels in their Communist Manifesto. So the point really is that change has been fairly constant since technology really started to take off back in the sort of mid-1700s. So if we just take a little step back in time, a little bit back further than Callum's birth. So the first industrial revolution, said to start around about the 1760s. Historians disagree a little bit about exactly when it did start. But basically, the first industrial revolution was founded on steam power, the introduction of the first machines and machine tools. The factory system was introduced, and it mainly was introduced into certain areas like textiles, printing, publishing, and mining. And this was where we saw the birth of what we now know as the modern capitalist system, exchange of goods, buying and selling on a mass scale, rather than very much craft production and sort of making for what you needed or what your village or town needed, and sort of very low-level exchange of goods. And it also saw, obviously, the start of the railway and the roads. So that went on, the first industrial revolution, for a few years, nearly 100 years. And then the second industrial revolution came along and started around about the 1860s and 70s. Here we saw the start of steel making, water supplies, sewage systems, electrical power, petroleum, chemical industries, the telephone in this era as well. And of course the introduction of bicycles, and then after that cars. So we started to see much more mass mobility, but also with, sort of particularly driven by the automotive and Ford, the introduction of the mass production and automated, really quite highly automated factory systems compared to the early factories. So productivity started to increase due to this automation and the increase of factories, which meant prices fell, and also we were able to produce goods in much bigger quantities, and so enabled much more international trade on a larger scale than had been possible before. And also, I think, although in the 1760s, the first industrial revolution saw some displacement of jobs, particularly in printing and textiles, started to see much more displacement of jobs and labour by machines during the second revolution. It did start to actually cause unemployment in certain towns that had relied on key industries. I know from doing my family history, one of my great-great-great-great-grandfathers was a saddler, made saddles for horses. And you could see that he had to move around the country quite a lot looking for work during his time, because it was in the mid-1800s, just as they were automating the production of those sorts of goods, and of course we were starting to see that mass employment. So we saw a lot of these people having to move from city to city looking for work as the introduction of more new technology. And the third industrial revolution, sort of key from the 50s and 60s, and this is, I think, where we started to see the rise of computing power. A lot of electronics and digital, of course, with the era when we put a man on the moon as well, with probably a computer that was less powerful than the phone in your pocket, as quite often said. And again, much more automated production, starting to see computing within the machine tools as well, again, accelerating the speed of automation. And actually computing in this era overtook agriculture and energy in terms of its combined GDP to the UK economy. We then move on, and arguably we're in the fourth industrial revolution right now. Again, some people argue about whether we're still at the back end of the third or into the fourth industrial revolution. But here we're starting to see machine learning, the rise of robots, artificial intelligence, virtual mixed reality, 3D printing, quantum computing. All of these technologies are starting to mature and will have probably quite significant and profound impacts on our daily lives as well as our working lives. And I think the difference with the fourth industrial revolution, so previous industrial revolutions have tended to be quite narrow in what industries that they've transformed, whereas AI, machine learning, robots have the ability to transform almost every sector, very few sectors that we won't see them sort of penetrate into and start to change and adapt.
So quite clearly we've come quite a long way in such a short amount of time. So let's talk about the future of the workplace, what the employment landscape is going to become thanks to tech, and how it's not all just about these big fancy technological advancements. So 1991 wasn't really that long ago, but recently I read that up to 800 million global workers are going to lose their jobs by 2030 to robotic automation. And another statement saying that 54% of all EU jobs are at risk of complete computerisation. There's over half of all jobs in the EU at risk of being completely automated out. And what are business owners thinking about these changes? Well, thanks to machine learning, maybe we don't need to hire all these data analysts, or thanks to factory automation, maybe I don't need all of these factory workers. A lot of employers are really thinking about reduction of staff. And what does this mean for the employees? Does it mean employees are going to be completely replaced by all these robots? Does it mean the future of the workplace is actually no workplace? Well, it could be. A lot of people think the end game of this kind of rise of the robots is either a dystopian society or a utopian society, where the dystopian society is the kind of dark and dingy society. There's a massive wealth gap. You've got the super mega rich with all the robots, and then everyone else is struggling to get by living in the alleyways. And in the complete contrast to this, you've got the utopian society, where the machines do all of the jobs we hate, and we're just left to do all the creative things and the things that we like. So, a bit of audience participation. If everyone in the room now could just raise their hand for me. Now, keep your hands in the air if you think we're heading towards the dark and dingy, scary dystopian society.
Oh, half and half.
Now put your hands up if you think we're heading towards a utopian, happy, lovely society. That's good. That's more positive. More positive than last time I did this talk.
So interestingly, actually, you're not that different to academic studies on this. So Jeremy Rifkin, who wrote The End of Work in 1995, as the title of his book suggests, had quite a dystopian view of the future. He felt that basically most jobs would go as a result of automation, and we would end up in a near workerless world. He, as I said, was quite pessimistic about the future of work, and felt his book was a call to action to try and actually think these problems through and respond to them. On the other hand, Daniel Carlin, economist, a much more positive view. So he said that basically if technology really destroyed jobs, then there's no work today already for anyone. So it's been happening for at least 30 years, and there are more jobs and better salaries, and our standard of living is now better as well in most cases. So we are seeing perhaps a bit of a wealth gap, but generally the whole system has shifted upwards in his view.
So these kind of utopian and dystopian societies really are the end game, and kind of sadly or gladly, we're not actually going to see these in our lifetime. The big challenge for our generation is this great transition. So for the dystopian believers out there, a lot of jobs are going to go. People are going to lose their jobs to robots and machines. And sadly for the utopian believers out there, there are still going to be a lot of jobs that need to be done. So to put that into some numbers, a bit of context with numbers, where we've got a 20% reduction in office support jobs, we're going to have a 30% rise in the need for care providers. We're going to have a 31% reduction in the need for predictable physical labour. We're going to have a 34% rise in the need for technology professionals. Now there's obviously a disparity in the size of each sector, but essentially what we're going to be facing is a massive global upskilling of the global workforce. Employees automated out of their jobs are simply going to be upskilled and retrained into new, more specialist roles. For example, as the demand for factory workers decreases because we have more automated machines, our ageing and growing population means we're going to need more healthcare and social care workers. In an industrial country such as China, this actually means that by 2030, 12% of their entire workforce are going to potentially need upskilling into brand new roles. That's around 100 million people by 2030.
And we can look back and see some of the companies that we know and love or hate within this field as well. So Facebook, it bought Instagram and they have 13 employees but 30 million users. So technology can enable a very big reach of organisations with relatively small labour forces and can actually create quite a lot of value in doing so. Google currently employs some 85,000 employees around the globe as well, and actually I think they've also got what they call an invisible workforce that is much bigger, a sort of contract workforce as well. Interestingly as well, as companies spring up in these areas, so Airbnb is an example there, they've got around 3,000 employees. These numbers are shifting all of the time actually, so when you create these presentations you have to look up the latest numbers. And although they're disrupting and displacing jobs in perhaps more low-end hotels, they're also creating jobs. So Airbnb, people who rent out their rooms and their houses and apartments, new firms are springing up around those so that they can actually handle all the payment and invoicing of people that come and stay in your apartment. There are firms springing up to help clean the apartments between guests and things like that. So as well as the jobs that Airbnb creates within its own organisation, quite often we see around these companies other jobs that come to support the core business of that company as well. And although we think AI is coming, actually it is already everywhere. I know quite a lot of you are in the technology business and know this already, but we've got a lot around voice recognition, conversational user interfaces and so on. Netflix and Amazon are constantly responding to how users rate the services and goods that they buy or the films that they watch as well, and using that to recommend other films based on what you've watched and what you like to watch as well. And as Callum said, there's lots of different predictions around what AI will do, and as I said, it will destroy jobs in some sectors, but it's predicted to be a 30 billion industry by 2024. It's predicted to add 630 billion to the UK economy by 2035, and to help increase productivity. And we know that in the UK, we actually pretty much since the mid-2000s have been suffering from a drop in productivity overall, and our productivity is actually pretty stagnant as a country, falling behind Germany and France and other countries. With the clever adoption of the right technologies within businesses, we have the chance to drive up productivity, and with that, drive up wages and economic growth and so on, and be a more prosperous country, hopefully, as a result of it. So, the area is growing as well, so a lot of people are using AI, sometimes without even knowing it. So fitness trackers are constantly responding. We've got apps, certainly like Trainers One, a local app, where it uses AI to actually help develop running plans for you that adapt to your heart rate, to your speed and so on, and then actually recalibrate what your next run should be. We're using AI to optimise storage and distribution systems, so large logistics firms are big heavy users of AI as well. Healthcare, faster diagnosis of disease, so by being able to actually again track what's happening remotely, being able to predict and respond more quickly to health issues. And actually some of the things that you read on your iPhone or your iPad have been written basically by robots, so they're actually able to write articles that make sense and can be consumed, sports articles and so on. So it's already there, and it is a very much a growing area.
So there is all this machine learning, all this AI going on, and it's all pretty crazy and pretty complex. But I think the best products out there are the ones that hide all this complexity behind something like a simple user interface. So the tech that I really get excited about are the relatively simple tech solutions. So you've got QuickBooks for accounting, Slack for communications. There's a lot going on behind the scenes, but it's so easy and simple to use. And I'll give you a few examples to put this into context, I'll give a few examples. So we've got Google Docs. It's quite simple really, it's just like Microsoft Word Online. But in SafePoint, we initially started using Microsoft Word. We'd be reviewing docs, me and my colleague Nick would be reviewing Microsoft Word documents, red penning things, highlighting things, pinging things back and forth on emails, and it just became a nightmare. You get 7,000 versions of this document, it's all commented all over the place. Switched everything over to Google Docs and Google Sheets, and instantly we can just hop on the phone and work on the same doc online at the same time. We must have saved hours, almost days by now, just switching over Google Docs. Another example is this brilliant local company, SafePoint. So SafePoint is a lone worker safety platform. All businesses need to protect their lone workers, it's health and safety regulation. But what a lot of businesses do at the moment is they faff around with telephone calls, emails, texts, I'm here, I'm going here, I'm doing this, and no one really knows what's going on. And if you want to find out what's going on, you call and text for 10 minutes and waste a lot of time. Using something like SafePoint means that each lone worker job you do, you just take an extra 10 seconds at the beginning of it. You cut out hours of time and hours of messing around just by using a relatively simple user interface, but that behind the scenes is doing a lot more than you could almost ever imagine. So to put this in some further context, how much time is this saving? So simple solutions such as SafePoint, such as Google Docs, they're the ones you're going to be using day to day. And how much time would these save you in the course of a year? So say you save just 10 minutes a day using Google Docs or 10 minutes a day using SafePoint. If you do that for a full year, so that's 261 working days, you actually save 43.5 hours of time. That's over a full week of 8-hour days saved just with 10 minutes a day. If you multiply this by a few employees in a business, if you combine that with a few other time-saving solutions, you can genuinely stand to save months of man-hours in your business. It's crazy when you add it up. And it's not just the time saved, it's the efficiency these solutions provide. Sometimes you can do your jobs quicker or better, like that Google Docs example I said before. And it's the happiness of the employees that don't have to deal with that worst part of their day. They don't have to email back 7,000 versions and figure out what's going on, because it's all just there. And where does this time that you save go? Well, it goes straight back into the business, so we can provide better products and solutions to our clients. And of course, it gives you more free time to give back to your employees. I know there's a few companies in Norwich that do it now that have actually gone down to a 4-day work week, because all of these solutions are giving us so much efficiency, we can do more in less time. So, to sum up, I started this presentation on the scary topic of tech taking jobs, and that we're going to end up in a dystopian nightmare. And that not many, and a lot of businesses are being enticed by like big AI and big machine learning things, when this isn't necessarily what a lot of businesses need. What I want you to go away thinking today is, what is the most annoying part of my workday, and how can I solve that simply? Because there are so many great tech solutions out there, such simple user interfaces that can solve so many of your problems and just save you so much time in your business.
And the thought I'd like to leave you with as well is that technology is happening. We can't stop it. We will continue to revolutionise and to invent and innovate new products and technologies. So this future is coming, it is happening. So I think what we need to do is to talk about it, to think about responsible innovation. So with AI, if we get it wrong and the algorithms are wrong, we can generate mass bias. If we have too many men doing the programming, we can forget about the female users. Or if we have too many young people, we can forget about the older users. So we need to actually have very diverse workforces that are creating these technologies and solutions. We need to think through some of the unintended consequences of some of the technologies and try to mitigate those unintended consequences. And I think 3D printing is quite a nice example. Fantastic technology, can have so many benefits. And then of course people start trying to print guns with them and things like that. So how do we think through how people might misuse technology and try to actually build in some safeguards around that? And so then how can we think about mass bias and compensate for that, so that actually we build good technology and technology for good in the future? So how do we have those conversations and make sure that we build a utopian future, because it is going to happen anyway. So that's the thought I would like to leave you with today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess we open up for questions.
I've just got an observation. The actual, most of the technological drivers has actually been war. And again, mass production through the Second World War was one thing that obviously the Americans were extremely good at. So, do we need another war? But it's true. I mean, war drives technology, and most of the major advances, especially in computing, were actually done both in the First and Second World War.
But I think the military does continue to innovate whether or not we have war, and then it's a question
they only really get tested when you actually use them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But certainly like drones and things like that, I mean, that's obviously quite amazing.
So what about space race instead then? Because that did the same sort of thing at the end of the 60s.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, but it's the Americans version of the Russians, wasn't it? They were scared there'd be a Skynet sort of thing put in by the Russians, weren't they?
About, I would say probably half of your productivity saving actually goes in benefits to the customer, because the customer raises their expectations.
Mm.
So it's no longer good enough to do this, because I can get Y, you know, faster, quicker, better, in half the time. So I go to them, and then everybody has to catch up, so we haven't got no saving as such. Because you've got a competitive advantage for a short period, often with these innovations, and then everybody else has to catch up and will go out of business.
Yeah,
And if they go out of business, someone else will come into the space. You've got a better way of doing it.
It's definitely a difficult balance between keeping up with the person that's doing it at the top, but at the same time translating that into actual benefit for people, as opposed to just your employees and your business, as opposed to clients. Because, like you said, you can constantly work. You can work 7 days a week and build the most amazing product, but then where's your life going?
Well, I think we're going full circle, and it wouldn't surprise me in a couple of years' time, a couple of 100 years' time, we're back to the same state as we were, say 1600, where it was all craft, it's all local. Yeah. And we're going to, with lorries delivery, we're going to go back to stagecoaches effectively, with the horses being changed every so many miles. The batteries are going to get changed every so many miles. It's a very, very similar system, except that we've got batteries rather than horses. I suspect we're going to be there.
One thing that does disturb me at times is a lot of automation. I mean, I work on privacy, and you mentioned things like Google Docs, all those bits and pieces. People need to understand what's happening to their information in the background, and the fact you use it every day at a certain time, and what happens to that data. Is it actually there? Is it safe, or is it just used to analyse some other marketing ploy which other people use? You know, Google's particularly bad at this sort of thing, as people probably know. I'm a great believer in getting rid of people like Google. I think Google's about the only company in the world you cannot switch off. You know, you can blow up nuclear power plants somewhere else and other industries will die. But apparently Google have got their own power supply somewhere else. You know? It's one of those weird things. But privacy is just something that people have to be aware of in the background.
Yeah,
And of course, the more you give away, the more useful the product often is, but then of course you're compromising.
Absolutely.
and I think the reliance is quite scary. So actually, we found out last Sunday is reliance on these kind of cloud platforms. We were trying to export a Google Doc, but on Sunday Google Docs actually went down. So we couldn't do anything to any of our documents, and we just had to sit and wait for 2 hours until it came back up. So there are definitely the pros and cons. The pros is saving us, as a startup, we save so much time and we can move a lot quicker. But the cons are just you are in an ecosystem.
You are. I mean, you know, but well, if you've got a laptop and that's your only source of data, you actually make sure you back it up. Or you've got another one somewhere that's the same. Google Docs and cloud stuff, you know, you need to have that secondary backup system somewhere along the line. It's business continuity. You know, it's your, you know, people just tend to run at stuff now and they go, oh, I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
You know.
That's the responsible innovation line as well, is how do we hold some of these companies to account? You know, our governments are too slow to legislate and to catch up with them.
And people are too quick to give their information away just so they get another carrot or whatever they get.
So I understand about privacy, but I think people get upset about the wrong things. I think something that is becoming increasingly is diminishing in society is personal responsibility. So at a high level, somebody can put an ad in front of you, but it's up to you whether or not you decide that you want to buy that product. The fact that someone has put an ad in front of you, and as Fiona indicated, it might be well targeted, that's not really the issue. The issue is your own self-control.
I mean, we're talking about sort of crafty industries there, but actually I think software development is a craft industry because everyone does it differently. I've never really seen 2 developers in my last 40 years do it the same. And actually it's a very labour intensive thing to do. We all do it separately. Every single company seems to do their own software development in many cases, unless you buy packages, which again don't often suit your business, or you lose competitive advantage because you bought a package and so does everyone else. So I think, you know, if there's one major revolution that needs to happen, it's in the IS industry of actually making software. And I can see artificial intelligence being actually a major driver in solving the issue that no one's got any people can find any developers. So that's where I think it will be. But that's the area I would concentrate on.
They'll just be based on previous knowledge.
Yeah.
You know, it won't be cutting edge.
No, you have to train the machine on what you know.
Algorithms just
But
based on
I know they fired some AI computers up and they started talking to each other in their own language. They made their own language. They decided
Yeah, I think that's great.
Yeah. So that's the sort of where it could go. But I think that's probably the best place for it.
A lot of it's transparency.
Yeah.
So you can actually, you know what's happening with your data, you know what's
Yeah.
going on with what you're using.
Yeah.
And I think there are a lot of companies that aren't as transparent as they could be.
There's two things that you may mention. The first, just to make a statement, about techies and the lack of techies. And now we have about 10 in our technical team. And when we started up, we had no money, and we would have really struggled to have got techies on. If we'd have started up today rather than 20 years ago, we'd have really struggled to get programmers. In fact, we probably wouldn't be here. Now, because our product is of a certain size, we can afford to pay a premium to get good techies and to pay them the kind of money that they need. So I think that the downside to that, and this is just sort of putting it out there, is that smaller companies are going to struggle unless people have got the love of it. Because if someone's offering 70 grand as a wage and 30 grand as a wage, most people are going to go for 70. So I think lack of techies will be a problem for the country as a whole. And the other thing that
So lack of techies is a problem for the country as a whole now.
yeah, absolutely.
And I think if you take the local situation, I don't think it's a case of salaries. I think even with large salaries relative to Cambridge, relative to London, people are still going to struggle with Norfolk. People still do struggle.
I think they do. They struggle to come to this part of the world because they don't. Well, you and I have had this conversation many times over. But I think the disparity is greater now than it was when we started.
Yeah.
If we started today, we wouldn't be here, full stop. Because we wouldn't have the volume of business to be able to afford to pay those.
Yeah.
Rather
Yeah,
big
I
wages.
don't think we can solve it with salaries.
I think it has to be availability. You have to train more techies. Is the only way.
But I think work-life balance and the well-being comes into that as well, because you could have a £70,000 a year package and work evenings, weekends, all that, or you could work a 4-day week for.
Well, this was my next sort of question really. And this was more. My first one was just sort of to put that out there. But the second one, you mentioned about a 4-day work week. So it'd be interesting to see what the room thinks of a 4-day work week. There's lots of debate over this at the moment. Some big companies have already done it. Some that have done it have gone back to a 5-day work week because it just didn't work. Their productivity dropped considerably. Others have said their productivity increases over 4 days relative to 5. Some people, seem to like it. Some people don't. It's very fashionable to offer it at the moment, and lots of people are talking about it. And we've even explored this, not a 4-day because I think we'd struggle, but for some of our non-customer facing staff, we've explored finishing at midday on a Friday, maybe getting back an hour in the morning, but overall giving up some time, so not a half a day or a full day. And I've read lots on it, and there's definitely different trains of thought. I wondered if anybody has had an experience around reducing the work week for people. Historically, you touched on the last industrial revolution. Reading back, we all used to work 7 days a week, and then we gave a Sunday back, and then the Saturday got given back, and then the work week, I think in the late 60s, early 70s, reduced again. And at the moment we're working more hours than most of Europe as well, so we are working a lot longer than our European counterparts. I just wondered if anyone's got experience of reducing that down further. Does that help improve your outlook for new techies, or does it make you at a disadvantage? Does it mean that the guy that's working 5 days a week is out producing you?
I was quite fortunate to have a contract where I was allowed to do my own hours, provided the work got done. There was a long-term contract, I used to work Tuesday to Thursday. That was fantastic. The customer I was working for actually wants to wind all that back in. We had a problem when it came to Friday. Other people were doing a similar type of workload as I was doing, and come Friday there was nobody in the office at all.
We found this over December, whereas December used to be, a week during December where you'd done no business. Now the week leading up to December, we do 40% of what we used to do business-wise. So the most noticeable thing from the point of view of our taking over a period of time is the week before Christmas now is very unproductive, and I wonder if we should just give that week off, for most of the time.
Yeah, that's a good idea, but that's obviously reflecting everybody's attitude, isn't it? If you want a bag of cement 3 days before Christmas, you'll never get one, unless you go to expensive B&Q or something. All the builders shut down. It's that whole
My experience is flexibility.
Yeah.
Is to have just have it flexible. Because often, I've been in the software development all my life. As I said, I've had my own business, I've worked in all kinds of companies. But flexibility is just, often you come to the end of a project or you're just waiting for something. And, this 9 till 5, sitting there twiddling your thumbs for some hours of that period. If you're doing agile development, someone might be on the website, someone might be on the CAD side in our case, someone's doing web services, waiting for a customer, waiting for a third party. It's having that flexibility just to live your life when you need it, when children need it, or you have to go to the hospital, or, your car breaks down. It's just having that flexibility, and I think from my experience, that is what most people want. And I think, from my point of view, most techies I've ever met will work solidly all day long. They enjoy it, they like doing it, it's their way of life, they're those sort of people. And I think probably I was happiest doing sort of starting at 6 in the morning, finish at 2 in the afternoon, but then I would work a Saturday morning till the wife got up early, and then sort of Sunday morning I'd do some work till the wife got up. And it's really how you want to sort of live your life. And for people who are making something and not in support, then I think the flexibility.
Yeah, you can definitely. It's not customer facing. You can definitely give that level of flexibility within technical.
Yeah.
Has anybody though given people on top of that flexibility layer, which I think to a greater or lesser degree is given now? Has anybody gone the extra step and said, look, we're very flexible, but on top of that, we finish at midday on a Friday, or we finish at we finish Thursday, 5 o'clock is the end of your working week.
Loads of sports cars used to finish at 12 o'clock on a Friday.
Yeah,
It's very
quite common in
handy.
automotive.
Yeah. 35-hour week, very common.
The maid agency have changed the way they work to make it more. So they've gone for 6-hour days, I think, and their days are structured so that they can. They head down working for the first hour, they can talk to their colleagues in the second hour, they go for lunch together, and then the same happens in the afternoon, that sort of thing. And that seems to be working very well for them.
And who's that?
That's the maid agency, so Mark Merry West.
Okay.
I can do an intro if you like. But I think from a software development point of view, flexibility is the way to go. So native development has always had the attitude that you work when you want to, for as long as you want to, as long as you get the work done. And we also offer as much holiday as anybody wants in a year, as long as the work gets done. And unfortunately, that has the opposite effect that people just don't take holiday.
Yeah, we find that in academia as well. We don't have set holidays. I mean, it's kind of notionally 5 weeks a year.
Yeah.
But we have very flexible contracts for academics, and actually they don't take
It's
enough holidays.
it's because we enjoy what we're doing.
Well, it comes back to this point about empowerment and flexibility, doesn't it? People have got the choice.
Yeah.
The more you give them, and you've got that trust, often the more they don't take it.
Yeah.
Whereas
So that's the important
whenever
work.
you, and it's hard when it's customer facing, whenever you sort of change the hours to, for the benefit of everyone, there's always going to be someone who's still slightly narked about that because they want that ultimate choice. There's a company locally, isn't there, just recently, I can't remember who it is, done exactly that and said, work whatever hours you like, we trust you, we'll still pay you the same.
Yeah. That's the important word. And
yeah.
you have to have the right people in your team because you have to be able to trust them. And it's also interesting what Callum was saying about if you're working all the time, where's your life going? I think that is excuse me, Callum, but an attitude that society has adopted, but it doesn't work for everybody because a lot of us in my position, Phil's position, we like what we're doing, and so we do it all the time. And it is like working, but it's not like working at the same time. So balance is important, but equally having the balance enforced on you, which is what I think the maid does, in my opinion, and I've shared that with them, is the wrong thing because it forces a particular balance on what people should have as flexibility.
It is so dependent on the industry and the people.
Yeah.
And if you can be outputs driven rather than input driven, that helps as well,
Yeah.
because then as long as the work's getting done, it doesn't matter how.
Do you think then, so if you were to give a 4-day work week as opposed to a 5, do you think that would empower that company to get better staff, or do you think that the guy who's still doing the 5-day week would outproduce them, make a better mousetrap, a more efficient product, and wipe out the 4-day a week guys? What do you reckon?
I think it's what you're doing. I think if you find people that are interested in what you're doing and like what you're doing, you can have whatever flexi time you want. I think that's probably the wrong attitude. That what you should be doing is giving people a job they really like.
And giving them choices.
Yeah, and giving them
If
choices.
someone's made to not, someone might like working 5 days a week spread over a bit of time. So if you make them then work 4 days and say, right, you've got to do the same, even they might resent that.
So do you think companies like locally, like LiveShare, have got the right idea in as much that they're investing that maybe that money that they would save on that extra day's work in making it a cool place to be, so you want to spend longer at work? Is that another option, do you think, if you're talking about flexibility? Give people the flexibility, but also make it very attractive to be at work.
Because that's about culture then, isn't it? It's about the culture and wanting to be there.
It's always good if you've got a good working environment, however that's made, you know, with a free office or whatever, just a nice couple of
Whether you need
seconds to
slide
chill
or
out on.
I mean, but when our company started in 1998 down at Walgate Course at Benedict Street, and in the end we just gave up the offices. We saved all the business rates, we saved all the health and safety, we saved everything, and over 8 years we all went as home workers, and that just worked superbly. And people worked so hard, you know, they didn't have to spend the time, you know, you don't have to get up in the morning for a start. I mean, I used to sit in my pyjamas, you know, half the day, and then the cat would come and sort me out in the afternoon. So all that time, all that hours and hours that you as a person are spending going in and out of work, which is carbon dioxide up the whole planet, you can save all that. And I think if there's one thing this government should be doing, it's encouraging home working for certain people who can work from home. And it worked brilliantly. You say with all these modern tools, you don't need to be in an office talking to people. There's a telephone, there's Skype, there's a myriad of tools you can use to work from home.
One of my people will avoid coming to the office at all costs.
Yeah.
Okay, and somebody else, they don't like working at home, so they like coming to the office. So again, we have that flexibility.
It's a whole social
I
thing.
don't think you can fit a 4-day week or a 4.5-day week into a team.
And it is right. It is
I think
interesting
we
to find what everyone thought. I mean, there's a big debate out there nationally and internationally. And some really big players have adopted a 4-day working week, and some have adopted it and gone back to the 5-day, and others are still, you know, considering the 4-day. I just wondered if anyone in the room had any experience or knew anyone that had. Because there's pros and cons for both.
Some of the larger companies have gone to sort of 4 days working on the sort of the day job, and then a day a week to work on a pet project that's sort of for the company. Personal, yeah.
There's a whole social thing about going to work. You know, that social. Years ago, I did a stint at Norwich Ealing, and a great part of the day was actually going by the copy machine. Or we were smokers, we used to go and smoke. Because that was your, you know, the social life, the interesting bits about being in a big group office. And you found out a lot more about who was working where and what projects were going on by that social interaction. I think if you actually disseminate the whole thing, so you've got different people living in different cottages communicating by electronic means or Skype or whatever, a lot of that gets lost. And I don't know what that means to society. You have to back that up some other way. You know, that human interaction.
Having somewhere at work where you're kind of happy to be is quite an important thing.
I
So
think
like that coffee shop where everyone can just go and you're suddenly doing all this mystery collaboration that you had no idea. When I used to work at Lockheed Martin, it was so unbelievably corporate, and you go into the office, and then as soon as anyone could get a second to leave, they'll be gone. No one ever talked to anyone, and they just leave. They just get out there as soon as possible, and there was just no collaboration between
Great
really
place to
anyone.
work there.
Yeah, it was right.
Has anybody looked at live-in and combined workspaces like in London? Has anyone heard of the Collective? This is sort of another interesting bit where society is going with a lot of people come out of university, used to live with other people, quite enjoy that interaction that they get at uni. They then come out, they're thrown into a flat on their own with bills and lots of stuff that they don't really not interested in. So these are tower blocks, if you like, with very small apartments, but shared areas, so shared bars. You can rent out if you want to. You can rent out if you want a dinner party, but your pad is too small to invite anybody else in. It's too small to have a cat. You can rent out a lounge area, or you can rent out a dining room area to have your party in. But these places are now also got, for a fixed fee, your collaborative work environment. So because you've got so many home workers that are teched up with just a laptop and you know, a couple of buddies on Slack, they've got a whole floor dedicated to shared workspace, a whole floor dedicated to eating and drinking and socialising, and they manage the events. So in the morning you have Pilates at lunchtime on the roof, at 6 o'clock you have drinks, you've got 300 other people living, or 300 rooms, so potentially 600 people living in that building. And then those that are home workers, or those that are independent workers can work in the shared workspace.
So you never need to leave the building.
It's got business,
It's 300, so in central London, £300 a week all in. You're cleaning your not your food, you're cleaning your electricity, your broadband, your workspace, your shared space, your bar, and your subsidised restaurant.
And that's
Looking to
interesting
do
'cause
something like that not quite to that scale, and the new St Mary's House development.
Are they?
Yeah, very much with it being you work and live and have those shared spaces. Yeah, that's what they're looking, because it is.
It's very.
It's got going back to the old garden town type,
Yeah.
new town type philosophy, isn't it? Everyone
Right.
works and lives
Or
in the
even,
same place.
even the Soviet communist era where you
I should get
seriously,
back
you
to
had
that
a block, you had a block, and there was no reason to leave the block because everybody would
But
want
that,
to.
I think that's interesting because to me, that as a software engineer and being in that young startup world, that sounds kind of quite utopian to me. The fact you just live there, you can go hang out with your mates a bit. But if you explain that as in you live above your office and you have to rent out your living room, for some people that can sound quite dystopian.
Depends how you frame
So
it.
it's
Choice.
kind of interesting.
That's
You should have a look, if you just Google the collective, I mean, you have a look at the website, it's definitely shiny, appealing, you know, if you're in your 20s, no children, you don't, if you think about when you move into your first house and you're committed with a mortgage or a tenancy agreement that is typically 12 months, you're stuck there for 12 months, and then your council tax comes in, you've never had one of those before, then your electricity bill comes in, and you have to wait, who was it I was just talking to about the telephone line,
Yeah.
you wait 3 weeks for your telephone line to appear, that doesn't appear.
Yeah, and then it doesn't work when it does a bit.
So imagine all of those things being removed for a single fixed fee, and because you're a developer and you're on £70,000 a year, you can afford that easily and have enough beer tokens.
So thanks, Grant. So Callum made me feel old with his opening, and now he's making me feel really old as well.
Yeah,
It's
I
funny,
think I'm
when
old,
you said
you
when
know,
I was
well,
born in
50
haven't they just taken like a university campus though? Because that sounds exactly like a university
I think,
campus.
you know, I think
It's exactly what it is.
what's interesting though, this building, they've just done one in Canary Wharf, they've got another one in they've got 3 in London, they've got another one.
They do one at Billingsgate, because you know, is it Arcadia before? They're doing one, they've got the St Mary's House development now, St George's Works, and they're doing, once they're finished down in Billingsgate, then they're coming up back
Our
over
place. Our place.
Yeah, Architectron
Yeah.
as was.
Architectural, that's it.
Is it?
Yeah.
I'd be interested.
Arcadia, yeah, that's a bloody shopping group,
Yeah,
isn't
yeah.
it?
Working on top shop.
Yeah.
There's
Oh,
3 in
right.
London.
This is what you can see, I'm not quite techie, can't you?
They've got one in New York, and they've just bought the biggest space in, I think it's Londonderry, to build the next one as well, a 98% occupancy.
Yeah, there's clearly a market for it.
But
Well, it's
nearly
funny,
all of them are home
we do it
workers.
with work, don't we? We do a lot of shared space with work, but we don't really do it residentially, do you?
No.
So there must be a requirement for a need for it, as you say, particularly somewhere like
I think
London,
it's
where you
driven
can't afford to live.
to live is expensive. It
And
is
that
a lot.
flexibility, like you can hire a desk, can't you, in
Yeah.
spaces, but can you, yeah.
It's a fantastic place out in Bali, just to piss everybody off. You can take your business idea and you're technically confused about it. Go to this particular place in Bali. It's an old rambly hotel that's bought by a tech tycoon in the States. And he just has techie people turn up, they all sit together, they go surfing, they do whatever. And they all come back with huge business plans that they go off and do. And I've not been there yet, I'd love to save up and go. But it just sounds utopian, fantastic place. So,
It's
great,
I think
great.
that probably sums it up quite nicely because we're out of time now, but the very point in making it in that you have that shared space, you have all that collaboration, which is brilliant. That could well be utopia, but exactly the same point. It could be dystopia because you've got to rent your lounge and you haven't got a proper space to live in.
Yeah.
Yeah, excellent work. Very good.
Yeah.
Sign up for that.
Thank you very much for coming and talking to us.
Well, thank you for
Thank
inviting
you.
us and for the interesting conversation.
Thank you.